Our next inductee is one of the reasons that I wanted to be here today, emceeing this event. Bob Alexander entered the world of ring announcing in 1989, not under the most glamorous of circumstances. He had convinced a promoter to allow him to announce a show on a rainy night in Sanibel Island. Well, the storm took out the sound system that night, and Alexander had to shout the introductions through cupped hands. But from there, he went on to announce fights on ESPN, Fox Sports Net, Sun Sports, MSG, pay-per-view, world title fights all over the United States and all over the world. He was the master of ceremonies for this inaugural Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in 2009. And on a personal note, as someone who takes the craft of ring announcing very seriously, it's always a pleasure to watch Bob. I don't think I've ever seen him make a mistake. He takes what he does very seriously, and is just one of the top-notch, most professional ring announcers that you will find in the business. I'm happy to call him a friend, and even more thrilled to call him a Hall of Famer. Bob Alexander.
Never made a mistake, huh? Thanks for setting me up, Mark. I appreciate that. I would like to thank the entire Boxing Hall of Fame members for this incredible honor, especially President Butch Flansburgh, his wife Kathy, Dr. Alan Fields, and Brian Gary. I'd like to congratulate all of my fellow inductees into the 2010 class. What an amazing group of people to be associated with, to go into this hall with longtime friends like Don Hazelton, James Smith, and living legends like Don King, Barbara Buttrick, and Muhammad Ali. It indeed is the greatest honor of my life. I grew up a teenager in the 1970s watching boxing. If the fight was on TV, I was there. If there was an article in the newspaper, I was clipping it out and putting it in a scrapbook. And if there was a magazine on sale at the corner store, I was bugging my dad for allowance money to go out and buy it. I never thought, though, I would get a chance to become involved as much as I have in professional boxing. When I was an adult, I was sitting in a fight one night, and I was watching the ring announcer, and I thought, what a cool job that is. Be up there with the fighters and getting the crowd all revved up. And I thought, man, maybe you could do that. You could be an announcer. The only problem was I had some strikes against me. I was living in a small town that had never even put on a professional fight, and I didn't know anybody in the business. I had no in. But they say that when you work hard for something, you appreciate it a lot more. And when I look back at where I started, it makes this day all the more sweet. As Mark told you, I pestered promoters until I finally got a shot to announce. It was at an open-air tennis stadium down on Sanibel Island 21 years ago this month. Everything went fine until the main event came along. As you heard, I was ready to give it my best. Ladies and gentlemen, and the sound system died. No backup. So actually, I thought the thing to do was to turn for advice to the Florida State Boxing Commission. So I turned to Don Hazelton. I said, Mr. Commissioner, what do I do? And I thought he would come up with some brilliant nugget of wisdom to help get me through. He shrugged his shoulders and said, shout. Shout? Yeah, shout. Who am I to question the boxing commission? So I started shouting, and the problem was at that point of the evening, there were a lot of patrons who had consumed great quantities of quality adult beverages. And they weren't very happy with my shouting, so they let me know about it by booing and catcalling, throwing empty beer cups at me. I think I caught a few half-eaten hot dogs. That was my introduction to the world of professional boxing. Far cry from the Hall of Fame. But over the next several years, I had the great opportunity to work and meet and become friends with a lot of people in professional boxing. People like Steve Canton, who put on so many great shows in my hometown of Punta Gorda and Fort Myers. And those shows helped me learn and grow and become the announcer that I am today. The one downer about this whole weekend is that I can't look out into the crowd and see the cap and the pipe of the legendary Hank Kaplan. I love that man so much, and he was such a supporter of mine. I know he's in heaven and looking down and trying to pat me on the back because he was so great. Another good friend who's here today who was always there with good advice and wanting to help me out was my good friend James Smith, Smitty as we all know him. Always encouraging, always positive to keep me going when I thought things were not going so well. I would like to say that last year I had the opportunity to serve as the MC of this great event. I had the chance to help induct ring announcer Mark Biro. Mark's not only a friend, a colleague, and a mentor to me, but he took special care of me. He helped get me jobs that he couldn't fill because he was already booked. And he didn't have to do that for me, but he did, and I will always be grateful for him to doing that. I want to thank Warriors Boxing Promotions down in Hollywood. Leon Margulies and his crew always got me on national television. They also took me to the Mecca of boxing, Madison Square Garden, to announce for the very first time. And I still get chills thinking that I was in the ring announcing where Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali fought twice. And that ring is now in the International Hall of Fame in Canastota. So that brings me chills every time I think about it. I want to thank all of the members of the Florida State Boxing Commission that I have worked with over the years, the doctors, the inspectors, the judges, the timekeepers, everybody. What a pleasure and an honor it is to work with those folks night in and night out of all these shows. Going back to the beginning when Don was in charge of the commission, Don used to chew on my ear a little bit when I was still wet behind it. In fact, he still blames me for turning that quality chestnut color hair of his a very fine silver. No, I'm just kidding. Don actually gave me one of the greatest compliments of my life. My fourth fight was my first fight on television. He pulled me aside after the show and told me how proud he was of me and what a great job I did. And I will never forget that moment. Thank you, Don. Richard Fabian is another gentleman who was on the commission when I started. Richard is a friend, a mentor, and someone that I still call this day. Whenever I have a problem, I call and ask for his advice because I know that he's such a straight shooter. As far as the current commission, it is so great to see support from people like Commissioner Dr. Mel Jurado, who's here, also Chairman Ramiro Ortiz, who unfortunately had to leave early. The Executive Director, Tom Malloy, is another gentleman who I've come to admire and look at as a mentor and a friend. And also Frank and Kathy Gentile are great friends and professionals to work with. When I'm not announcing, I do have another career. It's called radio. And I've been doing it for about 26, 27 years now. Two of my best friends, who I have not seen for quite a long time, made the trip here to be here this weekend, and I didn't know much about it. And it's the first time in 20 years that all three of us have been together. My good friends, Fran Grogan and Sybil Wilkes. It means so much that they came to be here with me on this day. I also want to thank all the listeners at Kicks Country 92.9 down in Port Charlotte, especially my partner of the last 16 years on the Todd and Bob Show, Mr. Todd Matthews. He always curses under his breath when I have to leave town to go do a fight because that means double the workload for him. But he always has my back, and I consider him to be a brother. It's not very often that you get a day named after you. But that happened to me this week in Charlotte County where I live. The Charlotte County Commission actually made today Bob Alexander Day. And I want to thank Commissioner Robert Skidmore, who has made the trip with his wonderful family to be here and to be part of that. I really appreciate it. My best friend in boxing is a guy named Mark Hager. Mark was the first Golden Gloves champion ever in the Charlotte County history, and he's always been there to catch me if I fall, both figuratively and literally. You see, about 5 years ago, I had a bit of a midlife crisis, and unlike most people who go out and buy a Harley at that point, I decided it would be a good idea to go out and play semi-pro football with a bunch of 20-year-olds, including my own son, much to the chagrin of my father. But it was great. I had a good time until I broke my leg in the last game of the season. But I wasn't going to let that stop me from doing my ring announcing duties. I just take off that strap-on cast and lumber into the ring. Well, unfortunately, I needed help to get up the steps and in through the ropes. And my friend Mark Hager was there every fight to help me in and out of the ring until my leg healed. That is the sign of a true friend. Lastly, I want to thank my incredible family who has put up with a lot, with me being gone on the road a lot, getting home a lot late at night. Many of them are here today. My dad and mom, Buddy and Debbie. My sister Brandy is here. My sister-in-law, Mary Lou Barber, who did such an outstanding job with the national anthem. Thank you, Mary Lou. Bravo. My son and daughter-in-law, James and Shelby, who blessed us with a grandbaby, Jade Lynn, just a month ago yesterday. They are here today. And of course, my wife, who couldn't give a flip about professional boxing when she met me, but now she is one of the best armchair judges I've ever seen in my life. My wife, Pam. In closing, I'd like to say what an honor it was to be asked to be MC last year, but to go into this Hall of Fame just 1 year later, it's bigger than a dream because I could have never dreamed something like this in my life. It's an honor to be a ring announcer. It's about being a small part of entertaining the crowd, but honoring and supporting the fighters is the main thing. I always love what I do, make no mistake. It's a lot of work, I have a lot of fun, but I take it very seriously. And I always promised to give my best effort and always be prepared no matter how big or how small the show. This is the greatest day of my life. I thank you all for being here. God bless you and thank you.
World renowned.